Welcome to this video demo of working with the election results spreadsheet. Now this file, this Butler County precinct by precinct file, is actual election results that I downloaded from the Butler County Board of Elections after midnight on the evening of the election in 2012, the presidential election. And so the first thing I'm going to do is make this spreadsheet nice and square by getting rid of this junk up top. We just don't need that. And delete it. All right, so now we have a nice regular header row in row 1. We see city or township, precinct. Now, the way everybody votes is you vote at your neighborhood precinct station, polling station, and there's a number of precincts in each city. As you can see, Fairfield has, like 38 precincts in it. Smaller cities have fewer. And this is the most granular level, the smallest level that you can really get voting returns. And so this is the name of the city, the precinct. Registered voters, the number of people registered to vote, eligible to vote in that area. And here's the number of votes for each candidate. And Stuart Alexander, Richard Duncan, Virgil Good, Gary Johnson. Who's heard of these people? All right, Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, the major Democratic and the Republican candidates, Jill Stein, and then we have people who wrote in a candidate. If you want to vote for Donald Duck and his name's not on the ballot, you can cast a write-in vote. And here's the total. And again, these are the votes for every single precinct. And so every voter in Butler County is represented here in their particular precinct. So we can just add down the column if we want to get some totals here. So this is the total number of people who voted. Let me just do some. All right, looks like we had about 164,000 votes. I believe that is Barack. Yeah, it looks like in the county there were this many votes, that many for Obama, that many for Mitt Romney. Now over here is the number of registered voters in the county. Now you need to be really cautious in dealing with registered voters, because unlike the number of voters, which reflects actually the number of people who went to the polls on polling day, the registered voters is really a bureaucratic designation. That's the number of people on the Board of Elections and the State Attorney General's voting lists, and it's kind of a flawed number. There are lots of people who register to vote and then move out of town, people who register to vote and then die. So you'll notice if you look at the results for 2012, which are right here, and then down here, the results for 2008, which I also put in this spreadsheet, the number of registered voters is actually much smaller in 2012 than in 2008. And it's important that you realize that that's not because there were actually fewer human beings voting in 2012. It was really because of an effort made to clean up the voters' roll and get rid of people who moved out of town, get rid of people who moved out of town or who are dead and remove them from the rolls. So that's the number of registered voters that year in 2008. Number of registered voters in 2012. Good deal smaller. But remember, that does not reflect actual human behavior. That reflects a bureaucratic process. All right. So now I'm going to remove these. Now the cool thing about this spreadsheet is the precinct level votes. But nobody really knows what precincts they live in. So what I'm going to do next is show you how to combine the precinct votes so we can talk about how different towns and cities voted. And that will be with a pivot table. I'll highlight the whole sheet. Data, pivot table. Okay. Now what I'm going to ask it to do is count up all of the precincts in each city or township. So you can put the city or township in the row. And let's find out Well, listen, so I'm going to put the precincts in the values. Whoops. count of precincts. And what this is showing us here is the number of precincts in each of these areas. Westchester, the largest number, 48 precincts. All right, somewhat interesting, I guess. What we really want to know is how people voted in each of these precincts. So let's look at Barack Obama. Now, we don't want the count of Barack Obama votes. That'll just be one, if anyone, the number of precincts in which anyone voted for Barack Obama. What we want is the sum of votes for Obama. And why don't we also put in the sum of votes for Mitt Romney? Again, not the count. Sum. You know, and I will even put in the sum of total votes. The total votes should be very close to Barack plus Mitt, but not exactly the same because of these weirdo third-party candidates. You know, and I'm also going to add to this, why don't I add the number of registered votes in each precinct too? Let's put that first. And again, got to switch it and change it to sum. All right, so from that initial sheet, from this initial sheet here, where it lists each precinct, I've now boiled it down. So now each city or township is on a row, and it's the sum of all the votes cast in each city or township. So this is good if you want to, for your analysis, because very few people are going to want to hear you talk about precinct 3FW4, but they are interested in hearing you talk about the towns that they know about. Now for the next step here, if you want to do anything more with a table like this, like start doing calculations on it, like we're going to do next, you can't really use it as a pivot table. You need to cut it and paste special values so it's a table that's more easily edited. And that gets rid of this green stuff. It severs the tie between this and the underlying sheet that you made it out of. So this spreadsheet, you're going to have trouble editing. You cannot sort it. You can't really filter it. But once you do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the information I want, edit, copy, edit, paste special, values. So now I have a sheet with exactly the same data, but none of the formatting, and now it's in a form where I can edit it. And as I said, if you try editing data in a pivot table, you'll find out how hard that can be. And the reason I did this is, you look at this, we have, so now I can do some math off of this if I want. Let's just do one or two calculations. So the voter turnout is a commonly heard figure, and that is the percentage, that is the number of people who voted, sum of the total votes cast, divided by the number of people who are registered to vote. All right, so we just figured out the voter turnout. Number of people votes divided by number of registered votes. Now keep in mind, when you're comparing voter turnout between 2008 and 2012, a lot of the changes you're going to be seeing are actually in this registered voter number and don't actually reflect voting behavior. That said, we just figured out the voter turnout, and if we want to sort it, click the top here, data, filter. We can see who had the lowest turnout. Lowest to highest. Look. Oxford had the lowest turnout. Is that a surprise? I don't know. A lot of college students probably registered to vote and then move out of town before the next election. And so that could wind up, that could give us a sort of false number here. Now, let's figure out, I'm going to get rid of that one. You could leave it on, but I'm going to take it off. Another thing we could figure out, how about, let's figure out in which town was the most democratic. In which town did the greatest percentage of people vote for Obama? So, Senate for Obama equals number of votes for Obama divided by the total number of votes cast. And I edit fill down. And I'm going to put that filter menu back on. Highest to lowest. Look at that. Everyone thinks Oxford is such a Republican town. Oxford, almost 60% for Obama in 2012. Go figure. All right. See you soon.